Hello and welcome to History How-Tos, instructional guides and videos for history teachers by history teachers. My name is Greg Thornton and today I'm going to be talking through using visualizers within the classroom. We're going to look at what is the evidence behind them, if there is any, and how can we, I suppose, be evidence informed when thinking about using visualizers. And I'll also be providing you with some practical tips and examples of how to use a visualizer within the classroom. As always, here is the sheet to support this. You can download this from the How-To website. Please download it, share it with your colleagues, and think about ways that you can use this in your department, and even maybe in other subjects. There's certainly some parts of this that are applicable to other subjects within the school. So firstly though, what are visualizers? Now I think, and I hope many of you know what they are or have one already. But for those of you who are a bit like, they're not really sure what one is, it's simply a camera that can be attached to a computer and or projector to display up close a piece of work or a demonstration, and you're live modelling something in front of the class. They're a wonderful tool, and I'm going to talk about why. So what does the research say? Now, because visualizers are a relatively new thing, it's only in the last 5 years that people have started to use them, and since the last 5 years since I've really had one. There's not a great deal of evidence yet, but again, we can apply a lot of thinking about cognitive science, etc., and cognitive load theory to the use of visualizers. But firstly, let's think about what the EEF said. So the Education Endowment Foundation, they've done a digital technology guidance report. And one of the things that they identified is that visualizers can improve the quality of explanation and modelling as they enable teachers to show pupils a wider range of high quality models. And that's one of the big things that I would agree about a visualizer, is that a display board, a whiteboard, an interactive whiteboard is limited by the size and, like, for example, me, my handwriting, that I can't really do a great deal on it sometimes. And obviously, if I'm stood in front of the board, I'm in the way. A visualizer allows me to actually write or highlight a much higher quality worked example and model of my work, and I'm not in the way, and I can see and engage with the students whilst I'm doing this rather than my back turned. So I'd say spot on there. So let's think about what some research says about thinking about visualizers. Well, think about the metacognitive benefits for students. Is that using a visualizer allows teachers to talk through worked examples, so model the writing and the chunked step-by-step process to writing models, to writing essays, to paragraphs, even to sentences. And by modelling that through a visualizer, it builds students' metacognitive understanding of the process involved in writing an essay, for example. And by you modelling it in real time with students, it really helps that idea, and it helps their self-regulation when they are doing it independently, because they've seen a teacher do it through the visualizer. Again, applying cognitive load theory is a massive benefit to working memory. Firstly, because they are focusing solely on what's going on the board that you are projecting using the visualizer, you're kind of reducing extraneous load. There's nothing redundant or distracting in the way. They are honed entirely on the pen, the writing, and you. And one of the big things that I'll mention now, but what I will do later, is if you do it in silence, it's a really good way of maintaining focus. And it's the idea of there's nothing else going on, they are looking at you. And it's really good for working memory, because you are not overloading working memory. And if you combine that with using worked examples and this step-by-step approach, massive help for reducing cognitive load on students' working memory. And lastly, and this is linking to metacognitive benefits again, is that visualizers actually have been shown to have a link between self-efficacy. By showing students gold standard work, excellent high quality work, either from yourself or from other students, it can boost motivation and confidence. I can see a student doing this. I know that student, or I used to know that student, and they can produce that work. I can do that too. I can achieve it. And if linked with using worked examples, which is on one of the other videos I've done, it can boost motivation and confidence, and obviously then progress. So some really good benefits to the idea of using models and using visualizers and the application of this cognitive science to thinking about it. So certainly things are obviously looking good for using Visualizer in the classroom. So I'm going to quickly talk about actually how do you use them in the classroom. What are some tips and tricks that you should do when using Visualizers in the classroom? So firstly, positioning is super important. I think that having one at the front of the class is great, and on your desk. And one of the things I've learned, and Ben Newmark, I think you talked about this, is that trying to do it so when you're writing, you're facing your students as well. Because you can keep an eye on the class, and you can do some excellent questioning with Visualizers, and you can see them and go, right, Phil, explain why I've just written this down, or Sarah, can you provide me with an example that I could use to support this point here? And in turn, it helps students because they can see you thinking and reflecting as you model, and they can see your writing process. So yeah, brilliant for both students and yourself as a questioning tool. Secondly, high expectations, and I think one of the good things is that it allows you to show high quality work, your annotations, the essay writing, and not only yours, but student work. And one of the ways to kind of keep this consistent is get a Visualizer book. You know, I've got one, I stick in, write in everything that I am doing on my Visualizer, which means I've got an example to refer to all the times. If a student misses a lesson, here's the model that we went through today, and it can be used for revision on returning back to saying, oh, look, this is what I did with a student last year. Let's look at this answer. Could we improve on this? And it's that idea of high expectations that you can show and model at all times. Time. A big thing is it takes practice using a Visualizer. You know, I'm probably in my 4th year of using one, and I'm still getting used to it. And one of the big things is my handwriting's terrible and I rush, so it's taking time. So practice using your Visualizer. Another one, preparation, and I'll talk about this in my worked example video. But one of the best things to do if you're using a Visualizer is think about and prepare your annotations in your models. Have a little sheet in front of you. I'm going to ask these questions as I'm going through my Visualizer today, because it's that little memory jog that helps you think, oh, I need to talk about this today, because sometimes it can be quite a daunting experience for teachers doing this. You know, some teachers feel more under pressure doing this than they do actually just doing some classic direct instruction and talking at the front of the class. Visualizers are a great tool for slowing down your teaching. You know, it's this idea of time, taking time, talking through the art of the sentence, talking through a paragraph, an essay, even drawing something during the one of the recent things that I'm planning to do this September is the process of how the Wall Street crash led to the Great Depression and the increasing Nazi votes, the classic rise of the Nazis. And I think you can draw a flow diagram under your Visualizer to supplement your explanation, which I think is a really powerful way of doing it. It's like the idea of dual coding dual coding, which helps them to understand it better. And under a Visualizer, perfect. Lots of questioning throughout. And lastly, it's this idea of a window into teaching. You know, you are the expert in the classroom. You are the expert. And using a Visualizer allows students to see into a window into you, the expert in your teaching. They can hear from the expert your thought process. You can demonstrate your skill, your subject knowledge, but also your vulnerabilities on a Visualizer. You can say, yeah, I find this bit quite hard as well sometimes. I get stumped, and they can see that. And I think students, it's important to understand that it is hard doing things. Source utility, source analysis can be hard, and being honest while using your Visualizer is a great way to get across that and build confidence with students. You know, so that's kind of 4 tips that I've got about using Visualizers. And I'm going to now move on to some strategies with some pictures and stuff of how you may use them in the history classroom. Modelling. I think the number one thing that I've always thought of is modelling. You can do live modelling. So you can say, right, I'm going to write an answer here. I want you to sit in silence, and as I'm writing, I want you to look for the 3 key things that I'm writing. Am I writing about analysis? Am I using evidence? Am I using knowledge? Now you can get them to sit in silence and just watch you do that, or you can get them to say, put their hands up or pause you when you are and say, sir, this is an example of so-and-so. Or you can get students to engage and collaborate. So you can either do independent live modelling, silent modelling from a teacher, or you can do it collaboratively. You can even simply do how-to, like So even if you're not writing an essay, you can do a source. So you can say, right, how to analyze a source. So this idea of using exam problem pair. So you can model quickly annotating a source about the Ruhr crisis, leave that on your visualizer, and then give students another source about the Ruhr crisis that they can kind of use the same thinking and analysis too. And lastly, you can use it for I-we-you modeling. You know, it's perfect. You model on the visualizer first, then as a we, you can collaboratively do it with a class, and you can get students to do it. So you can independently say, right, 5 minutes, write your own paragraph. Now I'm going to ask you to read yours out to me, and we'll go under it again. And whether you bring that student's book and then do it as a class, and then obviously you leave them to do it eventually, but you can do some feedback by taking that person's independent one, and as a class you mark it. Wonderful for modelling visualizers. Next is feedback, and this is one of the things that I probably use my visualizer probably equally to modelling for things. I use it for feedback every time we do a summative assessment, or any assessment really in Key Stage 3 or 4. I will type up or photocopy the best student answers, you know, the best of the best, and I will annotate and go through why they are so good within the classroom. So that's my examples here. And then students in turn go through their own answer and annotate the bits that they've done well, and they double tick and say, well, I did that, that's exactly what the model did. I forgot to include this. And everything in red you can see there is things the student has added after going through this model. So it's again re-highlighting what excellence looks like, but importantly, getting them to tick the things they did well so they can see, I matched this as well. Pardon me. You can also use it for feedback of comparative stuff. So you can get 2 essays underneath the visualizer, and you can compare, why is this one better than this one? You know, and if you have a lot of students who have hit the middle ground or the lower ground in an essay, you can get one of those examples and one of the stronger ones and goes, right, what makes that one better? How can we build that up? How can we improve that? And lastly, it's this idea of live feedback and I suppose a spotlight, a Polaroid moment. That's one of the cheesy things that I've called it over the years. Is you get a student's book, and you know, as you're wandering around the class, that is a fantastic piece of work, Nicola. And that is actually Nicola's book from a few years ago. I still remember. Fantastic piece of work here, Nicola. Let's bring it up and annotate it underneath the visualizer as a class. Why is this such a good answer? Quick, let's show everyone. We have to do this spotlighting excellence and using it for that. So yeah, live marking, wonderful. And I know a lot of you do this, like Rachel Ball, shout outs to you. She's done a fantastic recent blog on their changing feedback policy to whole class marking and a lot of live marking in class. And it's really powerful. And you can just take 1 or 2 books. Students mark theirs against the examples you've picked up. And that is a really quick way of, as a class, improving your writing. Revision 2 is a great way of using a visualizer. I couldn't find an example of a walking, talking mock that I've done from any of my pictures, so I've pinched this example from Emily here at Miss Follow Run Show. And you can use a visualizer to do a walking, talking mock, whether that's in a hall with 100 students or whether that's just in a classroom in revision. You get the exam paper underneath the visualizer and you talk through annotating it, and then you can write an answer out. It's that simple. It is a wonderful way of doing revision. It allows students to get some practice of the thinking behind answering exam question. Again, it's the metacognitive benefits here of the process students should go through when they are looking at, for example, sources here from this Excel paper. You can also do micro-planning. I'm a big fan of micro-planning. We don't often set full essays for students to do it as homework. In Year 11 we do like drills. Thanks to Becky Sayers for that idea. We do drills, but I do a lot of micro-planning. This is the question here, and students will just have to micro-plan what they would include in their answer. And then once we do this, I have my copy on the board, on a sheet. I do it on the visualizer, and students mark their own compared to mine. So again, it reduces the workload on you, and it allows students to see what excellence looks like and compare their own and add anything. Another one you could do for revision is beat the teacher. One of the times I've done this with Year 11 is we've both, under time conditions, written an answer. So for example, an 8-mark importance question for the American West. I write it, they write it in 13 minutes, and then I put mine on the visualizer and they compare theirs to mine. And we tick bits that we've done and add any bits. Again, really quick and easy activity, and I think it's a nice thing for you to do while students are sat doing an assessment sometimes. And students love the chance to try and to beat you or say, so you could have included that. Really powerful. And lastly, how can you use it in everyday teaching? One of the things you can use it for guided reading. So yeah, again, shout out to Simon Beale here for that wonderful guided reading idea. This is with a weaker class here that I went through every stage with them. Rather than modelling just the first one, we went through every stage of the guided reading. You can use it to get students to feedback on points. So this is an example here of students had to kind of sort the story of the Battle of Hastings into the right time order and using sources to write one out. They told me what they'd done. I wrote it on the board under the visualizer in the correct order with them, and then they copied it out. Even like going through sheets from the class. Right, guys, you've got a sheet to fill out. They do it, and then they feed back to you when you fill it out. So everyone's got a copy. That, again, would go into my visualizer book for next year. And one of the recent things that I think I've been looking at, and I know this is from Hugh Richards here, has been looking at, is using it for dual coding. How can you apply dual coding ideas within the classroom, but to more historically specific ones? And one of the ways is drawing out the concepts and models and the idea under the visualizer that so students can see. So this is an example of a medieval manor and some of the changes you would see over a period of time. So again, by drawing it on the visualizer, you've got more space to do that rather than on a whiteboard, and students can see the changes. Now, I've tried this with the Black Death. I haven't got a copy of it because my drawing was terrible, so I'm not sharing it. But I did what a medieval village looked like before the Black Death, a really simple drawing, and then I did one after the Black Death on the visualizer, and so students could see the changes. There was more graves. Some of the strips of land had enlarged for some of the peasants, highlighting the changes that happened after the Black Death in 38 to 49. But yeah, Visualisers, wonderful tool, and hopefully this range of ideas here has invigorated you or given you some ideas of what you can do. So further reading recommendations, one of the big ones here, and I know Alex Fairlam is going to do, he's doing a video on metacognition in the classroom. Wonderful topic, thank you, Alex. But this guide here from the EEF is really good at thinking about metacognition, self-regulated learning, and a lot of the ways that you can use a visualizer are included in this booklet, even if they don't mention a visualizer. For those of you that haven't got visualizers, these are two that have been highly recommended to me. I've got a really old art one that's like, yeah, that you can't probably go and buy anymore. It's terrible. But these are two that, yeah, I think they're about between 80 and £100. Good investment for HD ones, but I would recommend good quality helps students. And that's that really. So as always, please do visit the History How To website. Please subscribe to the channel on His TV and do get involved. We really want this to be a history community thing made by teachers. So if you've got an idea about how to use scholarship in the lesson, building inquiries, improving reading within the classroom, whole class reading, please do get in touch about making a sheet and a video. That'd be amazing. Thank you and bye.